Timeless 106.1 FM KFFB. This is Bob Connell. Thanks so much for joining us for day number 2 for our open mic program. We are talking with Congressman French Hill. And Congressman, thanks so much for updating us on the Iran thing yesterday, and it seems like that changes daily. But another thing that's been on the news, it seems like, since he's been elected, is the word impeachment, and that's for impeachment against Donald Trump. Tell us what's the latest on that.
Well, that's true. I mean, there were calls for Donald Trump's impeachment on Inauguration Day back in 2017. So you're right, this has been ongoing. The House had voted 3 times over the last couple of years for impeachment. Each of those votes lost. And then this fall, Adam Schiff began his latest attempt at impeachment over the telephone call with Ukraine. And that Nancy Pelosi passed 2 articles of impeachment against President Trump. She passed those. She lost Democrats on those votes, and one Democrat in the House actually changed parties to the Republican Party because of his outrage over Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi's activities. In any event, it's now the new year, and the 2 articles of impeachment passed by Nancy Pelosi's House have not yet been transmitted to the Senate. So this week, I think your listeners ought to be watching for, will Speaker Pelosi send the articles of impeachment to the Senate so that the Senate leader, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, can take action and determine what is going to happen about those articles.
Now, what will happen if they don't send them? It can be in limbo forever?
Well, I don't think that's the way the Constitution's set up. The House has the sole power of impeachment. I don't think they handled it right. I voted no on the articles of impeachment. I didn't think the process was right. I didn't think the charges were substantive enough. I didn't think that was the way the House should have handled it. But the Senate also has sole power of holding a trial on those 2 articles of impeachment, and they get to decide how to do it, when to do it, and under what circumstances. So that's fully in Leader McConnell's hands.
Now, another thing that folks bring up, and I wanted you to put some light on this, we have basically 3 branches of government. You have Congress, you have the court, Supreme Court, and then you have the president. And they're all entities of their own self. So what I didn't understand, and this is just me thinking, Congress can't call the president unless the court tells him he has to go there, because these are 2 equal powers, correct?
Correct. This is what Adam Schiff failed to do in September. He said this was a crisis, that every day that they didn't get President Trump impeached, they were more at risk of President Trump disrupting the 2020 election. That was the charge. And they rushed their whole investigation. They shortchanged the process. They limited debate. They limited witnesses. They limited any opposition to their process. They said it had to be done quickly. And so they jammed through the 2 articles of impeachment. And now they have held them up and not sent them to the Senate, which seems hypocritical to me. If they wanted Secretary Pompeo, for example, or former National Security Advisor Bolton to testify before the House Judiciary Committee last fall, you're right. They could have gone to the federal courts and demanded it. I don't think it would have been accepted, because I think the president has an executive privilege right to consult with his advisors. But nonetheless, that's how you do it. You have the court, the 3rd branch of government, compel the non-conforming branch to see if you can get a different outcome. And Schiff, I think because he had a weak case, never proposed to do that. He was in a hurry.
That's why I was saying obstruction. It can't be unless they went through the extra effort of going to the court. At that point, it's 2 equal branches, correct?
That's correct. And that's the way to look at it. And Congressman Schiff, for whatever set of reasons, weak case or not, chose not to comply with the normal process.
Well, that's when you study government. That's why I always thought that articles of obstruction doesn't hold water if you look at them as equally if they didn't call to the court to force it. But I guess that would have delayed the process.
Right. Well, there's not even something it's not even a crime called obstruction of Congress. I mean, this is just, there were no charges brought against President Trump in the 2 impeachment articles of any crime whatsoever. And this is why I've said from the very beginning that if Democrats differed with President Trump on handling aid or relationships with Ukraine, they should have had a series of oversight hearings in the Foreign Affairs Committee and built up the analysis of their viewpoint before they just pull the fire alarm and rush through a unsustainable and poorly documented impeachment effort.
And that's something even Nancy Pelosi did not want to do, but she was kind of forced her hand to do so.
Well, she lost control of her conference. She said last April or March, very specifically, impeachment's divisive. We should not do it unless there's an overwhelming legal case that warrants it and that it's fully bipartisan. So she broke all her parameters around how to conduct impeachment.
Oh, impeachment seems like we've been listening to this since the beginning of Trump's presidency. Well, let's talk about the Fleece Award. One of my favorite parts of interviewing you is bringing up the fleece, which this is a new one this month.
Well, this month it goes to the Department of Transportation. They're the latest recipient of the Golden Fleece Award. They, according to their Inspector General, couldn't come up with an accounting of 34% of all the laptops they purchased during a 4-year period. So they couldn't account for $3 million in taxpayer-purchased equipment. And people can say, well, gosh, $3 million is not very much money. Let me tell you something. This is how, when you have a $23 trillion debt, we need our federal agencies counting every penny and accounting for every dollar that the taxpayers allocate to them. And so there is no lack of responsibility that I don't want to point out. 34% of the laptops purchased in 4 years, they can't find them. That's 2,000 laptops. They can't account for them. So they got the golden fleece for December.
Well, Congressman, as always, I appreciate you updating us in D.C. And does it feel good when you come home, because you don't feel the division that you have in Arkansas as you do in D.C.?
Well, I love representing the people for the 2nd District in Arkansas. I can't believe that this week it's 5 years I've had the honor and privilege to represent Central Arkansas in the House. So it's a privilege to do it, but I can promise you when I come home every weekend, there's a great sense of happiness.
That's for sure, and it's a beautiful time here in Arkansas for sure. Well, Congressman, thanks so much for taking time and talking with us.
Thank you.